Good morning, everyone. I would want to take this opportunity to introduce myself as William, and now we are going to talk about yet another terrible circumstance right here with you. There are many people who have previously struggled with alcoholism who are able to fight their addiction, return to a normal life, form families, and aid others who are suffering similar issues in overcoming the crisis. Addiction is not a sentence in the majority of cases, and many of these individuals are able to do all of these things. The story of a young woman named Nicole Pitts, who seemed to have a whole bright life ahead of her, began in this fashion. Nicole Pitts appeared to have such a bright future ahead of her. Nicole Pitts was born for the first time in 1973 in King County, which is located in the state of Washington. Her parents had divorced when she was still in middle school. Therefore, she was the only child of her parents when she was born on February 26th. Her parents had been married for a while before she was born. In spite of the early instability that she encountered, Nicole grew up to become a child who was not only friendly, but also very active. For the duration of her time in high school, during which she took part in a wide range of activities and had a significant number of friends, she garnered a reputation thanks to her athleticism and her charming personality. Following her graduation from high school, Nicole continued her education at Western Washington College, where she earned a degree in public relations. Her undergraduate years were defined by her consistent participation in athletics, which enabled her to maintain her healthy physical condition. Her athletic endeavors contributed to her overall success. After discovering that she had a strong interest in the subject matter, Nicole eventually came to the conclusion that she should turn her passion into a source of income. After she was hired as a trainer at a sports club in the neighborhood, it didn't take her long to earn the adoration of her coworkers and a devoted customer. She was able to accomplish this in a short amount of time. A higher degree in management was also something that Nicole was working on at this time period. It was clear that she was determined and driven to achieve success in a variety of aspects of her life, as seen by the fact that she placed equal importance on both her academic performance and her physical condition. Because of her friendly and helpful exterior, she was able to amass a great number of friends and admirers, which served to mask the inner struggles that she would soon have to confront. The divorce of Nicole's parents, which occurred while she was a teenager, and had a significant influence on her life, was a significant occasion that marked a significant turning point in Nicole's life. Nicole's fragile psyche was taken aback by the news that they had decided to end their marriage, which was a big disappointment. She joined a dreadful crowd and started drinking alcohol in an attempt to numb the misery that she was experiencing because she was having a hard time coping with the situation. It was as a result of this that she developed a severe addiction that lasted for a number of years, which had a detrimental effect on both her physical and mental health. Gail, Nicole's mother, was a stewardess, and she was responsible for carrying out her tasks. However, due to the amount of work she had to do, she was absent very frequently. As a consequence of this, she was unable to recognize the extent of Nicole's difficulties until it was almost too late to take any action to address them. In addition, Nicole's grandmother, who was also elderly, did not recognize the severity of her granddaughter's drinking problem until after significant damage had already been done. At that time, Nicole was residing with her grandmother. Nicole was living with her grandma. Gail did not waste any time in taking action to assist her daughter after the truth was revealed. She initiated the process immediately. She enrolled Nicole in therapy and accompanied her to Alcoholics Anonymous (AA) meetings so that she could offer Nicole unwavering support without any reservations. In addition, Gail's new boyfriend, Rod, was incredibly helpful and encouraging during the entire process. The way he dealt with Nicole was as if she were his own daughter, and he had faith in her ability to overcome her addiction. When it came to her recovery, Nicole adopted a determined approach, making it a point to attend each and every AA meeting and therapy session without missing a single one. She was able to triumph over her addiction as a direct result of her unyielding dedication to the cause. Nevertheless, The excessive consumption of alcohol over the course of many years has left a permanent scar on her health that will not go. In light of the fact that she was experiencing significant problems with her pancreas, it was essential for her to have surgery. Because of the impact that the abuse had on her reproductive system, she was unable to bear children under any circumstances. This was the case regardless of the conditions. During the middle of the 90s, Nicole and David met at the sports club where she worked as a trainer. This was after Nicole had successfully beaten her addiction and recovered control of her life following her recovery. The tall and handsome young man named David, who was a regular at the club, was the one who first drew Nicole's attention. David was a consistent customer at the establishment. David showed a tremendous interest in her, and over the period of 8 years, the two of them built a romantic relationship. This occurred despite the fact that he was 4 years younger than she was at the time. In the year 2002, Nicole and David tied the knot in Hawaii, and the ceremony was a modest affair that was yet exceptionally lovely. Their closest friends and members of their family were the only people who were asked to attend. In the serene hamlet of Linwood, Washington, the couple built their home. It was there that they made the decision to purchase a home and started the process of establishing their life together. Nicole was able to quickly create a network of contacts in their new location due to the fact that she is an outgoing and friendly person. She exhibited her fondness for her dogs by doting on them and channeling her unused maternal love into the care of her pets, which made it very evident that she had a profound affection for animals. From the outside, Nicole and David appeared to be the perfect couple. This impression was formed when they were watched together. On numerous occasions, they were observed walking their dogs together, which gave the impression that they were in a state of genuine bliss. Nicole was well known for the mouth-watering home-cooked meals that she produced and constantly offered to all of her guests. She served these meals to all of her guests since she had a passion for cooking. It was inevitable that these underlying issues in their marriage would eventually be brought to light, despite the fact that their marriage gave the image of being happy on the surface. In 2006, Nicole Pitts disappeared without a trace only a few days before she would have turned 33 years old. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are unknown. It was the first time that her absence was noticed that she did not show up to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting where she was a leader and a source of motivation for a great number of people. It was exceedingly unusual for her to be unable to get there, and as a consequence, her fellow members of the group were instantly anxious about how she would do. After Nicole did not show up for work on that specific day, her co-workers expressed their concern about her absence. Gail, Nicole's mother, who had been unable to get in touch with Nicole during the day, placed a call to David's phone as the sun began to set. He informed her that he was unable to get in touch with Nicole as well, and that he had assumed that she was still upset about a minor argument that they had the day before. He stated that he had assumed that she was still upset about the disagreement. An official complaint of Nicole's disappearance was submitted to the authorities by her family when she had not yet returned home by the evening, and her phone had not been answered either. The report was filed when Nicole would not return home. At first, the authorities were hesitant to take the case seriously because Nicole was an adult and it had been less than 24 hours since she had been seen. In addition, the time period since she had been last seen was considerably shorter. The investigation was started by the police, and they started it at Nicole's house. However, they did not find any immediate indicators that suggested that there was any kind of foul play involved. Nevertheless, as the second day drew to an end, there was no trace of Nicole wherever to be found. Another thing that was missing was Nicole's car, which led to the speculation that she might have left on her own accord. Another layer of mystery was added to the issue as a result of this. With the passage of time and the absence of any new information being provided, Nicole's family and friends took it upon themselves to initiate their own search for her. They made an appeal on social networks, distributed flyers, and reached out to the local media in order to get any information that they could find. All of these activities were done in order to acquire as much information as possible. They realized that their worst fears had come true when a runner found Nicole's body in a remote part of a park in the neighborhood. The park was located in the middle of the community. Due to the fact that Nicole's body was discovered naked and contorted in a horrifying fashion, it was established that she had been severely beaten prior to being strangled. This was supported by the fact that her body was recovered. It was a very unfortunate circumstance. The fact that the girl was not wearing any clothing raised the likelihood that she was the victim of sexual assault, despite the fact that there was no evidence that could clearly support this hypothesis. The investigation into the murder of Nicole presented the police with a number of obstacles that needed to be conquered before they could determine the cause of death. The preliminary findings of the inquiry revealed that there were not as many leads as they had hoped, despite the fact that they had made a lot of efforts to conduct the investigation. There was no new evidence found, despite the fact that Nicole's car was found in a parking lot that had been abandoned a few weeks later. Despite this, there was no new evidence found. This was because the car had been meticulously cleaned and it did not exhibit any traces of struggle or extraterrestrial DNA. This was the reason for this. In light of the fact that the police had access to a very limited amount of information, they were left to piece together the specifics of the criminal act. The problem was not something that Gail and Rod were satisfied to observe in a passive manner over this period of time. They came to the conclusion that it would be beneficial to employ a private investigator and stated that they would offer a reward for any information that may lead to the identification of the person who was responsible for Nicole's death. The information was obtained with an extraordinary level of attention to detail, and they applied a significant amount of pressure to the authorities in order to investigate every possible lead. In response to the actions that David took throughout this time period, eyebrows were raised in accordance with those actions. Although he was initially helpful in the search, he instantly began to separate himself from Nicole's family, which was rather strange to others who were familiar with him. This was despite the fact that he had initially been helpful in the search. The fact that he remarried and established a new family very shortly after Nicole's passing added fuel to the fire of suspicions that were already rampant at the time. Not too much time had elapsed since Nicole had passed away before he did this. The individuals who were a part of Nicole's family had always been of the opinion that David's displays of melancholy were not genuine, and they had always considered his responses to be suspect. Additionally, it was found out that their assumptions were correct, which was a satisfying discovery. Over the course of a number of years, the authorities have been working in the background to build a case against David. In the aftermath of Nicole's kidnapping, surveillance footage revealed that a man who appeared to be David used Nicole's bank card at a petrol station. The person who was responsible for the transaction was David. Furthermore, in order to accommodate David, who is of a substantial height, the driver's seat in Nicole's vehicle had been modified to accommodate him. This action was taken in order to make David more comfortable. Nicole was discovered wearing a dental mouth guard that she wore at night, and her face was completely devoid of any makeup. She had not worn any makeup at all. As a result of this, the forensic investigation came to the conclusion that she had most likely been murdered while she was sleeping. The conclusion that she had been murdered was reached as a result of this. David was finally arrested and charged with the murder of Nicole in 2013, after the authorities had spent years conducting a thorough investigation into the case. As a consequence of this, the authorities filed accusations against David. Despite his persistent efforts to disprove the allegations, the evidence that had accumulated proven to be so compelling that it was impossible to ignore it. The strong case that was brought against David was bolstered by a number of elements, like forensic evidence, his suspicious conduct, and the financial motivation. David had quickly claimed a big insurance payoff after Nicole's death. All of these aspects contributed to the strong case that was brought against David. Every single person who was actively involved in the proceedings found the trial of David to be a difficult and emotionally taxing experience. Despite the fact that his defense attempted to portray him as a victim of circumstances, he was ultimately found guilty due to the substantial amount of evidence that was shown against him. That evidence was presented in court. Because of his sentence, which was 18 years in jail with the potential of parole in the year 2025, Nicole and her family were finally able to receive some degree of justice. His sentence was handed out in 2025. It was a significant advance in the right direction. In 2013, David was taken into jail, which was a significant turning point in the investigation into the murder of Nicole Pitts, which had been going on for a considerable amount of time and required a great deal of diligence. In spite of the fact that they had been confronted with a substantial amount of hostility and had been unsuccessful in their efforts, the police had meticulously constructed their case against him over the course of a number of years. After the body of Nicole was discovered, which was only a short period of time after the finding, evidence against David started to collect not long after the body was discovered. In the moments immediately following Nicole's disappearance, surveillance footage from a petrol station revealed that a guy who appeared to be David had used Nicole's bank card. The card was observed being used by the man. A forensic investigation that was conducted on Nicole's vehicle, which was discovered abandoned a few weeks later, indicated that the driver's seat had been modified to accommodate David's height. The conclusions of this investigation were revealed by the findings of the forensic investigation. This information was discovered as a result of the investigation's results. The fact that fibers from David's clothing were discovered on Nicole's body was a piece of additional evidence that further reinforced the case against him. The fact that Nicole was dressed in David's clothes was discovered. In the years that followed Nicole's passing, David's actions led to an increase in the number of issues that were produced as a result of the circumstances. Although he participated in search activities and made public calls for information, collecting information for the purpose of gathering information, it initially appeared as though he was a depressed widower. This was due to the fact that he was seeking information. However, over a short period of time, he underwent a sudden and dramatic change in his demeanor. Within a year, he remarried and began a new family, and he became increasingly distant from Nicole's relatives and friends. He also started a new family. At the same time, he began a new family. Additionally, he started a new family at the same time. Many people have expressed their suspicions over the dramatic change that took place after Nicole's passing, which they believe to be highly strange. Further inquiry revealed that David may have been motivated by an affair with a lady named Jane. This was discovered when the probe was expanded. The inquiry was broadened, which led to the discovery of this. This affair had been going on for a considerable amount of time prior to Nicole's passing, which was a couple of months before she passed away. According to Jane's testimony, David had confided in her about his dissatisfying marriage and had expressed a desire to be with her rather than his current spouse. It was also stated that David had shown a wish to be with Jane. It had been communicated to David that he desired to be with Jane. David had promptly submitted a claim for a big insurance settlement immediately after Nicole's demise. He used this money to continue living a lavish lifestyle with his new partner following Nicole's passing. Financial considerations were also at play in this scenario because David had used the money to fuel his expensive lifestyle. This was one of the reasons why this issue was so complicated. 2013 marked the beginning of the trial of David Pitts, which garnered a considerable amount of attention from the media. This was because the situation was exceedingly dramatic, which was the reason for this change. The prosecution presented a comprehensive case, which described the evidence that pointed to David as the person responsible for Nicole's death. The prosecution's case was presented in a manner that was complete. The case that was presented by the prosecution was presented in a comprehensive manner. Significant pieces of evidence included surveillance film, forensic discoveries discovered from Nicole's automobile, and testimony from Jane revealing her affair with David and his expressed displeasure with his marriage. These were just some of the pieces of evidence that were found. In the presence of the judge, each and every one of these pieces of evidence became accessible to the court. Initial efforts were made by David's legal team to throw doubt on the integrity of the inquiry by insinuating that the evidence had been mismanaged or manipulated in some way. This was done in an attempt to cast doubt on the investigation. When this was done, it was done with the intention of casting doubt on the honesty of the investigation. Furthermore, they made an effort to show David as a family-oriented husband who had been wrongly accused of something. This was made in addition to the previous point. On the other hand, as the processes of the trial advanced, the defense strategy went through a course of change. In the beginning, they concentrated on calling into question the dependability of the forensic evidence, as well as the motives behind the statements that were given by key witnesses, including Jane. It was at this point that they initiated their investigation. Even though all of these efforts were made, the evidence that was produced against David was of a sort that was so overwhelming that it was absolutely overwhelming. A considerable body of evidence was produced by the prosecution in order to substantiate their claim that David possesses the opportunity, the means, and the motivation to conduct the crime. This was done in order to confirm the prosecution's claims. Statements made by Nicole's family and friends at the time portrayed an image of a marriage that was filled with troubles and a man who was capable of lying and being aggressive. This picture was painted by the statements that were available at the time. Following the conclusion of the day's proceedings, the jury reached the verdict that David was the individual who was guilty for the killing of Nicole. There is a possibility that he will be available for parole in the year 2025 after having served a term of 18 years in jail sentence. This individual was given their punishment. After everything that had been done to guarantee that justice was served, Nicole's family was finally able to feel a feeling of pleasure with the conviction. They had gone to tremendous measures to see that justice was carried out. David continued to assert that he was innocent, but the verdict of the court proved that many people are of the opinion that Nicole's horrible death was the consequence of a purposeful and harsh act performed by the person in whom she had placed the most faith in the past. This was demonstrated by the fact that many people believed that Nicole's death was the result of a premeditated and violent act. This assertion was made in spite of the fact that David's insistence that he was innocent persisted throughout the entire conversation. Thank you for watching. I recommend our other crime videos.